I live in Portland, Oregon, which is this great city in the Pacific Northwest. It's buzzing with life and culture. Portland is the best city for coffee in the world, and one of the best cities for food in all of the US. And I got to lead this great church right downtown in the middle of the city. And because of Portland's sway, young people are moving to the city in droves from all over the place. About half of the church I lead is under the age of 30 and single, which means either they aren't married yet or they are just getting started. And I get front row seats to watch lots and lots of young people wrestle with the tension between what the city says, and by that I mean what culture at large says about love and marriage and sex and romance, and what God says in the scriptures, because there is a chasmic gap. And there's lots of fear and insecurity right now. I mean, after all, about 50% of marriages end in divorce. That is insane. I mean, think about it. Throw a coin up in the air, slap it on your wrist, call heads or tails. Those are the odds of your marriage making it past a few short years. I mean, what happened? And where did we get off? The writer Matthew tells this story about Jesus fielding questions on divorce. The Pharisees come to Jesus and ask, is God okay with divorce? And if so, when? Contrary to what you might think, divorce was rampant in Jesus' world, just like it is today. And to answer, Jesus quotes from the opening book in all of the Bible, Genesis. And he says this, haven't you read that from the beginning, God created them male and female? For this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. And then he wraps up by saying, therefore, what God has joined together, let not man separate. Essentially, Jesus is saying, you're asking the wrong question. God is the one who created marriage and love and sex and romance. It was all God's idea. That means He's the one who knows how it's supposed to function. The right question, the one you should be asking, is what is God's dream for human flourishing, for love and marriage and sex and romance? After all, He's the one who thought it all up. When God created the world, what was He thinking? Over the next 5 sessions, the plan is to go back to the story that started it all, the Garden of Eden, and read from the scriptures what God intended. And as we circle back to the garden, let's wrestle out a Loveology.
All this love, divine embrace.
Love is such a fuzzy word. In my house, we have a junk drawer where we put all sorts of stuff in just because we're not really sure where else to put it. The English word love is kind of like that. We say, I love God, and then we turn around and say, I love coffee. See the problem? The word is so generic, so flat, so all-inclusive that it doesn't really have any bite. Think about the phrase, fall in love. What does that even mean? I will never forget the night I first saw my wife. It was love at first sight. I know that sounds stupid, dumb even, but it's my story. She walked in and I said, hello, Mrs. Comer, what should we name our children? It was outside at a park with a bunch of friends on a September evening. Oregon gets this Indian summer that's fantastic. And when she walked up to me, all my fine motor skills went out the window. I didn't have a suave bone in my body. She said hello, but I might as well have said, will you marry me? I was in. She was calm, relaxed, soothing, everything I'm not. And she was beautiful. I mean, crazy, over the top, don't even try or you will make a fool of yourself, beautiful. I don't really remember what we talked about, but I remember I did not sleep that night, or the next, or the next. All I could think about was seeing her again. I was in love, meaning I was awash in feelings of romantic love. I had no clue what was coming around the bend, no idea that our picture-perfect romance would be followed by a less than ideal marriage. That hard stuff was brewing on the horizon. More on that later, but for now, can you see the problem? What is love? Now, most of the time, when love is used of a man and a woman, it means deep feelings of affection. Love, by that definition, is an emotion, and your role in love is passive. It's something that happens to you. You fall in love. It's like tripping over a rock or a curb. Now that sounds right. It sounds romantic and beautiful. Who doesn't want in on deep feelings of affection? But there's a dark underbelly to the romantic definition of love. What happens when the emotions go away and you fall out of love? Then you have a serious problem on your hands, because you define love as deep feelings of affection and you don't love him anymore. If you're dating, well, it's not the end of the world. You break up and move on. But what if you're married? Do you stay in a marriage even though you're not in love, or do you go the way of the 50%? I think we need a redefinition of love, one that will stand up to the frontal assault of life. We get that redefinition in the scriptures. There's a letter in the New Testament called 1 John. John was one of Jesus' disciples. He spent 3 years with Love Incarnate and was called the disciple Jesus loved. That basically makes him an expert on the subject. And he offers a blatant, clear-cut definition of love. Listen to this. This is love, not that we loved God, but that he loved us and sent his Son as an atoning sacrifice for our sins. There you have it. Love, in black and white, is Jesus on the cross. To John, if you want to know what love looks like, don't look at a dictionary. Look at a Jewish prophet crucified outside Jerusalem. Look at God in Jesus, bleeding, dying, and giving his life away for the world. Does that sound anything like deep feelings of affection? Now, don't get me wrong. Love is that, but it's also something more. Notice that John uses the word love as both a noun and a verb. This is love, that he loved us. We need to understand that love is a noun and a verb. When it comes to love, the noun, you're in the passenger seat. As I said before, your role is passive. It's something that happens to you. But with love, the verb, you're at the wheel. Your role is active. It's something you do. Put another way, love the noun is an emotion. Love the verb is an action. And love the noun isn't bad. There's nothing wrong with romantic feelings. The first song in all of the scriptures, Adam's poem in Genesis 2, and the longest song, the Song of Solomon in the middle of the scriptures, are both celebrations of romantic love. If you are in love, enjoy it. Romantic feelings are a gift from the Creator God. But at its root, love the noun can be selfish. Behind all the flowers and poetry and twitterpation, there's a narcissist hiding in the closet. When we say I love you, what we really mean is when I'm around you, I feel happy. You make me feel good. You bring me pleasure and joy. Now that's not all bad, but you don't have to be a psychologist to figure out the danger latent in that. Love the verb is a whole other story. At its core, love, as defined by Jesus on the cross, is self-giving. Over and over again, the authors of the Bible point to Jesus' death on the cross as the ultimate act of self-giving love. And Jesus' death becomes the model for how a man is to love a woman. Later, Paul writes, "Husbands, love your wives just as the Messiah loved the church and gave himself up for her." That's why love can be and is commanded by God. You cannot command emotions. You can only command actions. That's why God doesn't command you to have deep feelings of affection for people. He commands you to love people. All that to say, this word love in the scriptures is so much more than feelings. In English, we just have one word for love, but in Hebrew, there are actually three. The first is raya. That's the love you feel for a friend. In fact, it can be translated friend or companion. In one ancient Hebrew story, a man says to his girlfriend, "Arise, my raya, my beautiful one, and come away." Raya is when you want to get out of town and spend time together, go on a date, talk, play, goof off, just do life together. We all need a good raya. The second word is dode. This word is used in the opening line in the erotic Jewish book of poetry called the Song of Solomon. The woman says, "Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, for your dode is better than wine." Dode is when you are turned on, when your whole body is drawn into a man or a woman's sway. Dode is when keeping your hands in your pockets takes every ounce of strength in your being. We'll get to dode later. But then there's this word ahava. Ahava is something more, something deeper, wider, stronger. It's both of the above plus. It's a love that goes down to the soul, the deepest part of your being. It's a love that is unbending, unflinching, that does not take no for an answer. It's implacable and relentless. At the climax of the poem called the Song of Solomon, there's a moving stanza where the author writes this: "Place me like a seal over your heart, like a seal on your arm. For ahava is as strong as death, its jealousy as unyielding as the grave. It burns like blazing fire, like a mighty flame. Many waters cannot quench ahava. Rivers cannot sweep it away. If one were to give all the wealth of one's house for ahava, it would be utterly scorned." The point of the poetry is that ahava is strong. Feelings, no matter how vivid in the long run, are weak. They come and go. But ahava has resolve. It is that word we all avoid, commitment. It's a until death do us part kind of love. And ahava is the one and only kind of love that will carry a relationship past the early feelings of affection when you are in love, through decades of highs and lows, marriage and family and a career and unemployment and sickness and suffering and celebration, and well into the epilogue of life. This city's gravity is so strong. The pull, the sway is heavy. To swim against the tide, to not go the way of the 50%, to make a relationship stand the test of time, you need ahava. You need way more than feelings. You need Jesus-shaped love. Ahava is what carried Jesus through the cross and out the other side to the resurrection. And it's the kind of love that will do the same for you.